So, Shalom Abracha, everyone. Great to see everyone. Before we start delving in a little bit in the Parsha, just two hakdamas, so to say, to appreciate what our Parsha is all about. This week, there's a very famous Zohar HaKadosh, which is something that a lot of people say before Tkiyas Shofar. Before the Shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah, there's a Zohar, which people say as a preparation to the Shofar blowing, and it talks a lot about the contrast, the basically the differences and the koiches that the Sitra Achra, the koiches Atuma has, and the koich of Kedusha has, and the Satan, which wants to always get us, the Sitra Achra always wants to get us. The koiches Atuma, the power, the impure power, always wants to get us, and how we as a nation, we don't give up. We constantly go on, and we basically go through all the battles and all the ups and downs, so to say. So it's amazing how the Zohar is based on this week's Parsha, which is based on the entire story between Yaakov and Esav, with the Bechoira, with taking away his firstborn right, and with the taking away the brachos. All of this is basically has to do with the blowing of the shofar, which Esav constantly is upset on Klal Yisrael, which Esav is the Satan, the Malach Hamav is the Yetzer Hara, and always wants to get us. And we as a nation, we always overpower. At the end, we overpower the koich of the Sitra Achra, of the koiches Atuma. So it's an amazing thing. So that on its own gives us an understanding and appreciation that this week's Parsha, there is beyond deep things going on, which is, as they would say, lamala mahasogasenu. It's beyond our understanding. But maybe a little bit we could delve in and to appreciate what we don't understand, so to say. Now, another interesting akdama, and this is something that I'm not saying myself. This is Avodas Yisrael, the Koshnitz Maggid said this. So I'm just saying it over in his name. Now, obviously, we know B'schus Nashim Tzidkaniyos, and the schus of the Nashim Tzidkaniyos, we went out of Mitzrayim. We know that the Nashim Tzidkaniyos, they are the ones who are in this to be taken out from this Golus. The Koshnitz Maggid did say, he says that sometimes when the Nashim, when the ladies mix in the Ruchnias, they get part, things go differently. Now, obviously, we don't understand why this had to happen with Rivka getting Yaakov to get the brachas, but this is an idea that he says. He says it's only because of this whole bracha thing, which was taken away from Esav, that father had to give him the bracha. V'hoya kashetorit, when you will be upset. Why? Because the Yidden won't be the way they should be. Ufarakta uloi mal tzavarecha, you'll be able to complain and say, why is it that the Yidden Yaakov got the bracha, and then you will be able to do harm for the Bnei Yisrael. That's what Yitzchak said. So he says, the Koshnitz Maggid, at the end of the day, this Nakuda, this point, happened because of Mami coming into the picture. Obviously, it's beyond. It's just a thought, which the Koshnitz Maggid says, that the Nashim Tzidkaniyos, their role in day-to-day life is the Gashmi is the role, the part of bringing the Gashmias into the home, and the Koyach HaRuchni is the part of Ruchnias, the spiritual part is for the husbands, for the tatis. So these two things is as an akdama to this week's Parsha. The Torah starts off, Eila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the generations, the children of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram hoiledes Yitzchak. Avram had a child, Yitzchak. Everyone asked the Kasha, Rashi, everyone, all the Mefarshim, how is it when we're talking about the Toldos, the generations of Yitzchak, the Torah mentions Avram hoiledes Yitzchak, that Avram Avinu gave birth to Yitzchak. The Torah doesn't talk about Yaakov and Esav only later. Why does the Torah go back to Avram Hoyled? Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So just an amazing insight, which I mentioned a few weeks ago, but the Rechaim HaKodesh points it out over here again. Yitzchak Avinu was born as with a Nishmas HaNukva. His neshama was a neshama of Nukva, the Keva, which at that point, when he was born, he wasn't able to have children. It only happened by the Akedah, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, when Yitzchak was 37 years old. That's by that, during the Akedah, the neshama of Nukva left Yitzchak, and it actually went into the aisle, into the ram. And that's when Yitzchak got a neshama of Dchura as a Zachar, which is the koyach of the strength of having children. That took place during the Akedah. So if so, says the Rechaim HaKadosh, how was Yitzchak able to have children, which is Yaakov and Esav mentioned in this Parsha? It's only because Avram was willing to shecht his son Yitzchak, because he was willing to do anything and everything out of love to Hashem. This is the reason why Yitzchak switched from Nukva to the Chura, and this is the reason why he was zoichet to have children. So says the Rechaim HaKadosh, Eila told this Yitzchak, these are the children of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Now, how did Yitzchak have children? He was born with a neshama of Nukva. Says the Torah, Avram brought in the koyach of Hoyled, the koyach of having children as Yitzchak. He brought in this koyach that Yitzchak should be able to have children. How was it? Because of the Akedah. So this is the basically introduction to how is it that Yitzchak had children if his neshama was a neshama of Nukva? And the Torah says because Avram by the Akedah put in this koyach into Yitzchak. Now the Torah continues with this very beyond, I would say, like things that we see, we tap in, that it's beyond our understanding, what we can comprehend. How Yitzchak was standing b'zav Yezu, he was standing in one corner, Rivka was standing in another corner, and they both were davening for children. Rivka couldn't have children, and it says that Yitzchak, his tefillah was answered. Ein doime tzaddik ben tzaddik. If you have zchus avos, if you have parents and grandparents who were tzaddikim, it has a huge koyach, and that's the strength that Yitzchak had, and his tefillah was answered. But the Nefesh David, Reb David Tebel, he was the Rav in Lisa, he lived in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. He says something really beyond incredible in this happening, what took place with Yitzchak standing in one corner and Rivka in another corner. What was going on there? And from there he goes into understanding why is it that Rivka said, Im Kain, if this is so, if this is the way I'm carrying my children, if this is the way the pregnancy is going, why is it that I need this? Which is mind-boggling. This Tzedekis Rivka saying this. Why is it that I wanted to become pregnant? Why is it that I wanted all this? It's beyond. And then later on, when Yitzchak and when Yaakov and Esav grow up, and here we have this whole story with Yitzchak wanting to give the bracha to Esav. Rivka wants Yaakov to get the bracha. What is going on here? Why is Yitzchak so animate? Why does he want Yaakov to have Esav to have the bracha, and why Rivka, Yaakov? What was going on here? So Reb David Tebel basically he brings in all the different things that one has to do with another, and he says like this. He says something so fascinating. He says Yitzchak was standing Zavius to the side of Dorim. He was standing to the south. His body was faced to the south. Rivka was faced to the north. She was standing by Tzafin. And they were both davening for children. Why so? Why is it that Yitzchak was standing to the south, to Dorim, and Rivka was standing to the north? So he says like this. This is a medrash. What I just said, this is a medrash. That Yitzchak was standing to the south and Rivka was standing to the north. Says Reb David Hebel, he says like this. He says, Yitzchak, he wanted children to be Oivdei Hashem be'emes, and they should only know of serving Hashem. They should be Koilul Yingolite, B'nai Torah, nothing to do with the world. They should bamish be immersed in Torah 24/7, so to say, serve Hashem with tefillah, serve Hashem with Torah, serving Hashem 24/7. Rivka had a different approach, the way she envisioned her children to be. She wanted children to have the balance, so to say, to have the ability, yes, to be Oivdei Hashem be'emes, to serve Hashem be'emes, daven and learn, but still be able to connect to this world. Still, so to say, be grounded to this world. Now, Yitzchak, because he was a Oila Tamima, he was brought on the Mizbeach, he was brought on the Akedah, and it says in the Medrash, 3 years, he was in Gan Eden Atachten. The 3 years from 37 to 40, till he got married to Rivka, he was in Gan Eden. And in Gan Eden, he was healing from the drama, from the Akedah, says the Medrash. In other words, at the end of the day, his father took the knife and he did a small cut into his throat. Yitzchak needed to obviously the healing wasn't only a physical healing, but in order to be able to get back into this Welt, in order to be able to have shaykhs, to connect to the world, to the Gashmi's world, he couldn't do it right away. He was on such a high level, Yitzchak, after the Akedah, he couldn't just go and connect to the Gashmias. So it says the Medrash, 3 years he was in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden Atachen. He was in Gan Eden, which is over here in this world, on the other side of the sword that turns, and this is where he was for 3 years. After 3 years, he now entered a marriage. But obviously Yitzchak, he was in a whole different Welt. His Welt was total Ruchani. His thinking was Ruchani. His behavior was Ruchani. He was in a total different Welt. He wasn't like Avraham Avinu, which connected to people, gave Achnos Zorchim. Yitzchak Avinu, his avodah was Pachad Yitzchak. It was on a whole different level. He couldn't relate to the Gashmias. What he wanted a child that's 100% Kuloi Ruchni. Rivka Lemaisa, she knew in order to establish a Yiddish nation, the Yiddish nation needs Gashmias also. You can't have a nation, you can't have a family and children and all these mitzvahs that we need to do without having money. We need money. So Rivka, she was the balance. In other words, Yitzchak was totally in Ruchnius 110%. Rivka was the one who was the balance to balance out these two things, the Gashmius and the Ruchnius. So says Reb David Hevel like this. Yitzchak was focused on Dorim. It says, Haroitza lahachkim, if a person wants to become smart, Yadrim, when you daven, you should be turning to the south. That's where Chochmah comes from. From the south, the Chochmah comes from. If a person wants ashiras, he wants wealth, his body should focus to the north, says the Gemara. If you want to become wealthy, you should daven to the north, because mitzofain from the north is Zohav Ya'ava. Zohav, the gold, the wealth comes from the north. So he says, that's why the Medrash says, Yitzchak, who only wanted the Ruchnius 100%, he was focused on the Dorim, on the Yachkim, on the Chachma. Rivka, she was focused not only on the Tzafin, but she was focused on the balance, to be able to balance out these two, the Ruchnius and the Gashmius, and that's why she was focused on the Dorim, on the Tzafin. So now let's continue in the Parsha. So Rivka is now awaiting children, and according to Reb David Hebel, she knew that she was awaiting twins. According to Rashi, it says that she didn't know. That's why she went and she asked Shem, what's going on here? Why is he going? Why one moment does he run to the Avodah Zarah and one moment he's running to the yeshiva? But according to the David Hebel, she knew, and this is a medrash. She quotes a medrash that she knew. So it's different opinions. So what was going on? Why was Rivka not, she was all concerned about this pregnancy? So he says something very interesting. He says Rivka, she knew that Avram had two wives. Avram had Hagar and Sarah, two wives. Now Hagar gave birth to Yishmael. Sarah gave birth to Yitzchak. Why is it so? So he says from the Zohar, because in the beginning of the Yiddish nation, the beginning of Klal Yisrael, there were a lot of klipa, a lot of tumah that was connected to kedusha, and it had to be separated in order for Klal Yisrael to become this pure nation. So Avram Avinu, he basically married Hagar. She gave birth to Yishmael, which was, so to say, the klipa that was removed from Avram Avinu, and then Yitzchak was able to be born. Yitzchak was born through Sarah. Now Rivka was also hoping. Rivka was actually hoping, says the Reb David Hebel, something really interesting. She was hoping that she would be able to bring into the world only a pure child, which will then give birth to generations of pureness, which Lamaisa happened. Because Yaakov, he gave birth to 12 Shvatim, Shiftei Ka, 12 Heilige Shvatim. But she was hoping that Yitzchak would also do the same thing like his father and marry another wife. But Lamaisa, Yitzchak couldn't do it because Yitzchak was a Oila Tamima. So Rivka was in Kain Lomazeh Noichi, meaning Zeh, she was concerned about her giving birth to Esau because she knew that she is carrying in her two children, and one is a tzaddik and one is a rasha. So she was concerned. Why is it she was all nervous? Why is it that I have to give birth to a tzaddik and to a rasha, which she was hoping she would only give birth to a tzaddik? And when she went to Shem told her, this is the way Klal Yisrael has to be established. In other words, when Avram Avinu, in the time of Avram Avinu, these two neshamas had to come out from two separate wives. In Yitzchak's time, it has to happen with Rivka herself. She has to give birth to one Esav Rasha and one Tzaddik Yaakov, which is basically separating the klipa even more by giving birth in the same pregnancy to these two children, and then Yaakov's children would be able to be pure. So this was the answer that Shem gave her. So later on, according to all this, we could appreciate what was happening when Yitzchak wanted to give a bracha to Esav. Yitzchak, for whatever reason, had this shita, what we said before. He wanted Esav to be the Zevulun, the supporter for the Yaakov, for the Bnei Torah. He wanted Esav to be the one supporting Torah, and he wanted Yaakov to be only immersed in Torah 24/7. Therefore, he felt if Esav gets the brachis, he will be the supporter, and Bnei Yaakov, which is Klal Yisrael, will be able to learn Torah 24/7. Rivka had a different thinking. Rivka appreciated from what Shem told her that Esav is the ultimate klippa. Esav has no shaykhis to kedusha. Therefore, she knew that if Esav gets the brachis, it will be devastating. It would take away all the bracha for Yaakov because Esav will keep it to themselves. Esav will keep it to himself, and Yaakov would be basically going through Gehenna because Yaakov wouldn't have money. So therefore, Rivka, knowing from what she heard from Shem, that Esav is the klipa which was removed now, so Yaakov should have mitosoi shalema, she couldn't trust Esav. And that's why she got Yaakov to come in and get the brachas. So this is basically a very fascinating way of seeing the differences between Yitzchak and Rivka, the way they saw the establishment for Klal Yisrael, how Klal Yisrael should be established. And Lamaisa Rivka, says Reb David Hebel, Hashem agreed to her because we saw that Hashem gave her the Ruach HaKodesh to know when Yitzchak spoke to Esav quietly without anyone knowing. So we see that Hashem giving her the Ruach HaKodesh, he agreed to Rivka that Klal Yisrael cannot have we shouldn't rely on Esav. When it comes to supporting Torah, we should have from within Klal Yisrael supporters for Torah. We shouldn't need the Esav, so to say, to support Torah. And this is Lamaisa, how Klal Yisrael was established of Yisascha Zvulun within Klal Yisrael itself. Now, there are many different things that we could discuss in this parsha, but I wanted to talk now of a very interesting thought. And if we have more time, we'll get back to more discussion with what we're saying now. Later on, not later on actually, but in the Torah talks in Parak Chavav Pasuk Aleph, a very interesting story, which we all know. There was a famine in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem tells Yitzchak, go to Plishtim. He goes to Plishtim because he can't leave Eretz Yisrael, because he's not like his father Avram that can leave Eretz Yisrael, because he was brought on the Akedah. He goes to the city of Plishtim, which is part of Eretz Yisrael, says the Ramban. And over there, he starts becoming a little comfortable, and people were asking about his wife, so the whole thing played out again. And Avimelech found out that it's not his sister, it's his wife. He said it's his sister, but it wasn't his sister. And then later on, we see that when when Avimelech chases away Yitzchak, the reason why Avimelech chased away Yitzchak from Plishtim, because Yitzchak became very, very powerful, became very popular, and people said, we would rather want the Zevel, the fertilizer of Yitzchak, to buy the fertilizer, because his fertilizer had amazing bracha. If you put it onto the fields that you were planting, the fields were growing amazingly. So people wanted rather the fertilizer from Yitzchak rather than the kesef izav, the money from Avimelech, and he became too popular. But the Torah tells us, before he left, he dug a few wells. First, he took out the dirt from his father's wells. Avram Avinu dug wells when he was there, over 70 years earlier. And just to appreciate, the Medrash says, why did Avram Avinu dig wells? Because Avram Avinu wanted to do good for people, so people should have what to drink when they're on the road. So he dug wells. And then, so Yitzchak went in the footsteps of his father, and he also dug wells. And now listen to what happened. So what happened was, he dug 2 wells, and there was argument going on. His shepherds, Yitzchak shepherds, dug 2 wells, and the Roye Gra, the shepherds of Gra, came, and they were all upset. They said, "Why are you doing this?" And they told the Roye Yitzchak, "It's not yours, it's ours. Go away." So the name of that well was Sitna. Sitna means Sutton. The second well, which is basically the same thing, they started, actually, the first well was Asek, because it became a whole Asek, an argument, and the second well was Sitna. Then it says, Vayatek Misham, in Pasuk HaBeis, this is something fascinating, listen in Rabbi say, Vayatek Misham, and he removed himself from there, Yitzchak, Vayachber, and he dug Be'er Acheres, another well, V'loi Rabu Oleo, and they did not argue on this well, Vayikra Shema Rechoivos. This well he called Rechoivos. Rechoivos means widening, because this was a place where no one was arguing with each other. Listen to this, Rabbi say. Says the Choiza of Lublin. The Sea of Lublin says the following. Why over here does it say, by the third well, it says Vayatik? A very extreme expression. It should say Vayisa. Vayisa Misham, and he traveled from there. He traveled from the first 2 wells, which they were arguing with, and he went and he dug a third well. Why does it say Vayatek? Listen to what the Choiza of Lublin says. He says, so many times our thinking process is in a negative light. We think negativity. If we go through certain situations in life, everyone goes through ups and downs, different nisyonis, different challenges. Says the Choiza, if we start delving into this negativity brings more negativity. In order for us to bring positivity, we have to focus on positivity. We have to have a positive outlook in everything in life. And by thinking positive, by becoming a positive thinker, it attracts positivity and it brings good into our life. So, and he says, and he goes on and he says like this. He says, so many times in the Yiddish history, we were sucked in, we got caught into negativity, and the only way we were able to continue was by removing ourselves and change our thinking process and start thinking positive. He says, the Baal Shem Tov says this, he says that where a person's thinking process is, that's where the person is. A person's body could be one place, but if the thinking of a person is somewhere else, he's over there. So we see that thinking is the main component in our of a person. Everyone knows this. The Kedushas Levi, the Baditchever Rebbe, once after davening went over to a Yid in the shul and he gave him shalom, and he said, Rabbi Yid, shalom aleichem. He said, Rebbe, why are you giving me shalom? I never left. I never went anywhere. He said, yes, you just came back from Leipzig. You were in the Yerid. You were by this big Yerid going on in Leipzig. Because when he davened, he was thinking, and the Kedushas Levi was able to be toifus machshava. He knew what he was, so he gave him shalom. You came back from Leipzig. So what we do, what we think, that makes us. And says the Chayz of Lublin, that's why a person who's a tzaddik, person who's a pure person, what is the main ingredient for a person to be pure? He says the moyach, our brain, the way we think. If we think pure things, then we become pure. Even if we don't do chas v'shalom averis, but if we think impureness, it still has an effect on us. So the way we think has such a big impact in our whole being, and obviously in Yiddishkeit even more. So he says like this. He says, Yitzchak Avinu was trapped into negativity. Hashem told him to go to Plishtim, right? He was caught into negativity. What's going on here? Hashem told me to go to Plishtim. Here I am in Plishtim, and these people are nagging me. They're basically, I'm digging a well. I want to be nice to people. I want to be able to give people an opportunity to have water to drink, and they're nagging me. He was caught into this negative way of thinking, and he was thinking negative. And after the first well, after him thinking negative, it pulled him in, and he got even more into negativity, thinking negative, the opposite of positive. So the second well, again, the same story. They come and they argue. What did Yitzchak do, says the Chayz of Lublin? Vayatek. Vayatek means to tear yourself away. He tore himself away from the negative thinking. And he said to himself, let me start thinking positive. Let me see how much good Hashem did to me. Let me see how much Hashem does to me every day. And he started thinking positive. Vayatek misham. He removed himself. That's vayatek. He removed his thinking process misham, says the Chayze. Wow, once he did that, he dug another well, and it was geschmack. Everything was geschmack. So what an amazing, amazing lesson that the Heilige Chayze teaches us in this week's Parsha. This lesson itself speaks volumes that we, with our thinking, we have the koyach to attract things. Thinking negative, chas v'shalom, we attract negativity. Thinking positive, we attract positivity. And that's why Yitzchak had to tear himself off from what happened. He says the same thing was by Kriyas Yamsov. He says by Kriyas Yamsov, also amazing. By Kriyas Yamsov, right before Yidden went into the Yamsov, Yidden was screaming, why did you take us out of Mitzrayim? Everything was negative, negative, negative. It says, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, why are you davening to me? Why are you screaming to me? Daber b'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael. Tell the b'nei Yisrael they should start traveling into the Yamsov. Says the Zohar, listen to the Zohar. This is all the Chayz of Lublin. I'm adding to what he says. Says the Chayz, the Zohar says, Ba'atika talya milsa. Ba'atika, very interesting expression. Ba'atika, with atika, talya milsa. What is this atika? He says atika is exactly what we just said. Get everyone to rip themselves, to remove themselves from this negativity. Leave all the negativity. Leave all the garbage behind the Yamsuf. All the garbage that you have in your cup, in your head. Leave it behind and go into the Yamsuf in a positive light. And Klal Yisrael did it. And that's Ba'atika. Hashem says, Moshe, there's no davening now. Don't scream to me. There's one thing to do. Get Klal Yisrael to switch their way of thinking. Once they switch it, everything will fall into place. And obviously, right after that, Oz Yoshi Moshe, they started singing. They appreciated this positive idea of singing and bringing more bracha into the world through a nishmas, through a geshmak nishmas, through a geshmak mizmul soida. That's how we bring more positivity into the world. That's how we create positivity around us. And that's when Hashem told Moshe Ba'atika, remove yourself from this negativity. And that's what Yitzchak did by Yatik Misham. He removed himself from this negativity. Now we have another few minutes. I'll share a few beautiful insights on the Parsha before we finish. Later on, when Yitzchak gave the bracha to Yaakov, we all know a very famous pasuk. Yitzchak starts with the following: "V'yiten l'cho elikim." Hashem should give to you mitala shamayim, from the dew of the shamayim. This is Shishi. Umishmanei haaretz, and from the fats of the land. V'roiv dogon v'sirosh, and a lot of dogon, grain and wine. Famous Rashi. V'yiten l'cho elikim. Why is it that in the beginning of the pasuk it starts with a vav, a very unusual thing? It's the beginning of the bracha. The beginning of the bracha. Yitzchak is starting the bracha. Hashem should give you from the dew of Shemayim, from the tal of Shemayim. Why is it that the bracha starts? Yitzchak, the Torah starts with a vav. V'yiten l'cho elikim. So Rashi says, Yitain, vav is constantly. V'yitain, Yitain v'yachze v'yitain. Hashem should constantly give you bracha. Again and again and again and again. V'yitain means over and over again and again. Why is it, asked the Degel Machne Ephraim, why is this such a beautiful bracha that Hashem has to gives us constantly again and again bracha? Wouldn't it be more bracha, more powerful bracha, that Hashem gives us bracha once and for all? We get bracha. We get once and for all, we get bracha. So says the Degel, a famous word, but it's tied into this week's Parsha. He says, why by the Nachash? What was the Nachash? Why was it a curse, which the Nachash was cursed, that you will eat the dust? We all know it's a very famous chazal, because Hashem said, I don't want to know you. You go and you eat and don't have anything to do with me. So says the Degel, this is part of the bracha that we Yidden got from Yitzchak, which is we will constantly need the connection to Hashem. Hashem will constantly want our connection, meaning we'll have bracha and we'll need more bracha, and we'll constantly have to reach out to Hashem for more bracha. Not that Hashem gives us one bracha for our entire life or for a few years. Hashem v'yiten. Yitin v'yachze v'yitin. This on its own is a beautiful bracha that we need to constantly reach out to Hashem to have this connection with the Boire Olam, with Kitche Baruch Hu, with Hashem. So that on its own is an amazing bracha. Now later on, a few psukim later, Yaakov Avinu tells, actually in the same bracha, the same pasuk, it says, Hashem, Yitzchak tells Yaakov, from the dew of Shemayim and Mishmanei haaretz, you will have your bracha, you will have dew, and you will have the fats of the land. So the Degel, this is also the Degel, he asks, later, when Yitzchak gave a bracha to Esav, because Esav was begging him, please give me a bracha, it seems like he gets almost the same bracha. Because he says, Yitzchak tells Esav, Mishmanei haaretz, you will have from the fats of the land. Your settling place will be from the fats of the land. Umetala shamayim me'ol, you will have from the dew of shamayim. It seems like he's getting the same bracha. Esav got the same bracha like Yaakov. Yaakov got metala shamayim and mishmane oretz, and Esav got this bracha. So Rabbi Yisai, listen to what the Degel says. The Degel says, we as a Yiddish nation, we are beyond Teva. Things that seem to be natural, that things one-on-one, if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, doesn't apply to us Yidden. We are beyond Teva, above everything. Esav, the Umas Ha'olam, other nations are within Teva. Only when things one plus one adds up to 2. Otherwise, they're not beyond. They're not beyond. They're not l'malam derech hateva. The shaloi kederech hateva, l'malam derech hateva. We Yidden, we have it. When did we get it? He says we got it with this bracha, with Yitzchak, with the bracha, with what Yitzchak gave Yaakov. He says v'yitan l'cho elikim. Only by Yaakov, Yitzchak mentions Elikim. He says ho elikim. Elikim itself is the gematria hateva. Ho elikim is l'mala mehateva. V'yitan l'cho elikim. Hashem, which is l'mala elikim, l'mala mehateva, will give you metal hashamayim. Even if the stargazers, whoever tells you that al pi derech hateva chas v'sholom, a person can't have this and this and this, if it's children, wealth, whatever it is, we are l'mala mehateva. V'yitan l'cho elikim, the elikim, the l'mala mehateva, we will get things beyond. Esav doesn't say these words. Everything is in Teva. Metal Hashemayim, Mishmani Oretz. Everything is in the Teva, not Lamala Mederach HaTeva. I'll end the this Shiur with a beautiful Maisa. I hope it's not going to take. I'll try to make it very, very short, which demonstrates the idea of positive thinking. Many years ago, there was a younger man in Yerushalayim that lived in Har Noif, and he had his own house. He bought a house, and he was a yeshiva man. He was a ben Torah, and unfortunately, he had a fire in his house, and the damage was really, really bad. And they told him in order to get the house back in shape, it will cost him 200,000 shkolim, which is beyond his capability. So he came to Rabbi Vadia Yosef, and he came to him and he said, Rebbe, what should I do over here? I don't know what to do. I'm a yeshiva man. I don't have, I barely make it monthly. And over here, the only way to do to get the house back the way it was, you need 200,000 shekel. It's like I can't even grasp. It's beyond. So Rabbi Vadia Yosef told him. Rabbi Vadia listened to him. He listened to him, and he had a lot of mitgefühl. He felt his pain, and he told him, "Go into the next room. Let me think about it. Leave my room. Let me think about it." So this younger man went into a different room. In the middle, when he was out in the next room, another person came in. Rabbi Vadia another person was led into Rabbi Vadia Yosef. And this person invited Rabbi Vadia Yosef to a bris of his Einikel, his grandson in Bnei Brak. And Rabbi Vadia Yosef told him, I'm so sorry. The last few years, I don't go for Sandikois. I don't go anywhere to be a Sandik besides in Yerushalayim, because I have so much Torah to catch up. And I have so much Torah to write that I don't have the time. So I need to basically dismiss this offer. I can't do it. And the Yid said, please, do me a favor, do it. He said, I can't. I'm so sorry. He said, but Rebbe, I promised my son-in-law, who didn't have children for a few years, once he has a son, I will bring Rebbe Vadia as a sandik. And he never told him this, but that's what he said. So please. So Rebbe Vadia thought a few minutes, and he said, listen, I'm calling in the other younger man in a different room, and we'll have a discussion, and then we'll decide. So he called in this Ben Torah who had this fire, and he said, come in. He came in, and here all three are in this room. And Rabbi Vadia says like this: if he turned to this wealthy man, he was a wealthy man, if you're willing to pay 200,000 shkolim for this year to be able to redo his home, I'm willing to go. Now, this younger man heard the whole discussion because he was sitting right next to this room. And this younger man was nodding with his head like this. And Rabbi Vadia was like, why? He said, no. Rebbe, I can't let this happen. I heard that the Rebbe is really stressed with time. I can't have this happen. I'm willing to be mevater on 200,000 shkolim that the Rebbe's Torah shouldn't chas v'sholem lose out. The Rebbe shouldn't lose out. Rabbi Vadia shouldn't lose out on Torah. Rabbi Vadia was mamish taken by this. And Rabbi Vadia told him, so he basically, he at the end, he didn't go to this bris because obviously this plan didn't work out. Rabbi Vadia, then after this Yid left, Rabbi Vadia told this Yid, I think what would be a good idea for you to move to Bet Shemesh. Bet Shemesh was then in the early stages where the houses was very cheap. Buy a house over there. You'll be able to sell your house in Yerushalayim. You'll still have money to buy a house in Bet Shemesh. This way you'll be able to settle. He said the Singaman said it wasn't easy for him because he had everything in Yerushalayim and his wife was doing well in Yerushalayim, but he listened to Rabbi Vadia and he basically sold his house and he went to Bet Shemesh. He said he went through so much Gehenna the first few years because he was in a different place. There was no Svar de Sheminyan, but he kept on being mechazik himself. He was mechazik himself. If this is what Hashem wanted, he was mechazik himself, only thinking positive. At the end, what happened was a wealthy Svardish Yid came over to this younger man because there was no Svardi shul, and he said, I'm willing to pay for a shul if you get me a lot where to build a shul, I'm willing to pay for the shul. Fast forward, this Yid built a big shul, and this younger man became the Rav. I don't know who the Rav is, maybe he's still a Rav. And he became the Rav of the shul, and because of this, when he tells over the story, he says, because of this, I had this thing that I had to learn more and more to be able to be a Rav in this Kehillah. And he grew much more in Torah, and Baruch Hashem, he has Parnasa and everything. And when he gives over the story, he says, this is again the same idea, staying positive and going forward in life. And at the end, things work out. My bracha to everyone is that we should all be able to have the seichel, to think positive, to act positive, and we should see the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and should be zoiche to a geschmacke chodesh, a gute chodesh Kislev, and a gute Shabbos, and shkoyach to everyone, a gewaldige Shabbos kodesh. Hatzlacha